we talk about meeting people or specific moments in time that kind of change your perspective, and I'm happy to be here today for that reason. Obviously, with a disappointing result in Korea, it's the first time in my life where I've kind of experienced a span of time where I just didn't want to think about going to the rink or going to the gym. And so, I kind of found that fire again, and I'm excited about that. I grew up I'll take you way back, and everybody's heard the typical cliche hockey story a million times. So I won't spend too much time talking about it, but I grew up in a small town, Forest, Ontario, about 2.5 hours southwest of here. And when I was a kid, there was 3 people I idolized: Joe Sakic, Doug Gilmour, and my cousin Richard Spence. Never played professionally, but when I was in the late 90s, I was about 6 or 7 at the time. He was playing for the Oshawa Generals, and so I spent a lot of time around him, and he was just someone I kind of looked up to, and he probably scored maybe 1 or 2 goals over the course of a 4 or 5 year career in the OHL. Had about 700 penalty minutes. And so I'd spend a ton of time, like everyone would, like every young kid did or does, on my backyard rink. And I had my best friend lived across the street. He was a really good hockey player as well. We were teammates. And so we'd spend every day on the backyard rink pretending we were those players. And for me, it was Joe Sakic and Doug Gilmour most of the time. But there were so many fights when I was pretending to be Richard Spence. And we had some good battles out there. But that's kind of where my hockey career was born. And I was lucky enough to excel alongside some of my very close friends from my hometown and start playing AAA. And I started playing AAA in Sarnia when I was 9 years old. And sorry, I love to pace, by the way. I better. And so in my minor midget year, as my career progressed, I was playing which was hopefully going to be my last year in minor hockey. And it was my OHL draft year. So I was at that time playing for a new team here in Perth Lakers out of Stratford. And the first game of the season, we were at a tournament here in Toronto. And September 11th, 2009, and I broke my leg in the second period, early in the second period. And my season was pretty much done. It's typically a 4-month recovery process. And so, that was hard enough as it was to kind of lose that chance of going through the OHL draft and not taking that next step towards the NHL. But through the recovery process, I had developed a bump just below my left knee. And it went undiagnosed for 3-4 months. I was still walking, skating, practicing with my team without contact. And by the time our first round of playoffs had come, again, we were set for a first round matchup against Windsor. And by that time, the bump below my left knee was about the size of a tennis ball. And pretty difficult to put a shin pad on, but I was practicing in probably the best shape of my life, far better shape than I am right now after a month and a half out of the gym. But I was excited to start playing again. And so I went in for my final checkup to get a doctor's note and just get back with the team. Because, you're always part of a team, but when you're injured and away for so long, it's difficult to feel like you're a part of it because you don't get to contribute as much as you'd like. And so I was just excited for that, first and foremost. And then just, playoffs would be the best time to come back. And so my x-ray showed that about 2 inches of my bone were missing. And the only thing supporting my leg was the titanium rod that I'd had inserted into my tibia when I broke my leg. And so the alarm started going off right away. Cancer had never crossed my mind, my family's mind, not even the doctor's mind for that matter, because it's very rare for a healthy young hockey player to go through something like that. And so in January of 2010, I was admitted to the hospital and diagnosed with spindle cell sarcoma, So a form of bone cancer right below my knee. And, one of the best things for me was, at the time, was just being a young, dumb, cocky little teenager, because I had no idea what cancer was, no idea the protocol behind it. I just thought I'd do what I have to do, get healthy, and play hockey, within a few months. And so that was my perspective on it. Until the next week, when I met with a surgeon from Mount Sinai Hospital, and he walked into the room, introduced himself, and said, didn't waste any time, and just said, "Tyler, to save your life, we have to amputate your leg above the knee." And there's two specific times in my life where I've just lost control of my entire body and just laid motionless, and that was one. Because at the time, I was less scared to die than I was of losing my hockey career, and that was difficult to comprehend. And so, from there, you don't have time to think about anything. I started chemotherapy the next day. I think was the day of the Vancouver opening ceremonies, and was just kind of thrown into this world that I had no knowledge about, and was very lucky to have the hockey community around me. On several different occasions, we had entire hockey teams and their parents in a tiny little hospital wardroom at Sick Kids Hospital, there to come visit myself and my family. And and at the time you don't realize that, but it helps a lot. And so, I was lucky to have that support throughout the entire protocol, and which still continues to this day. But, from there, I had to have my leg amputated above the knee, and kind of come to terms with the fact that my hockey career was over. And so I had my amputation at Mount Sinai Hospital here in Toronto the day of the OHL draft, which was kind of salt in the wound, as you'd expect. And was lucky enough to be very healthy, recover well, get through my chemotherapy protocol, which was 8 months long. And from there, I just wanted to play again. I wanted to be a competitive athlete. I didn't know how. I thought I'd stay involved in hockey as a coach. And then I was introduced by a former coach of mine to the sport of sledge hockey. And I'll be honest with you, in 2010, I was 16 at the time. I had very little knowledge about what sledge hockey was. I'd seen it on TV a little bit throughout the Vancouver Paralympics, and that was it. And so, still being a relatively cocky teenager, I thought I'd get in a sled. I started in London, thought I'd get in a sled and be a superstar right away. And it wasn't like that. I was very surprised to learn at how difficult the sport was, how different it was, and just kind of have to refocus and reframe my mind to learn a new sport at 16, learn a new sport that I already knew at the age of 16. And, from there, was able to kind of transition fairly quickly as I built that skill set, and make the national team within a year, just over a year of playing, and be thrown into a completely different environment once again, where I was 18 years old at the time, and our oldest player was 38 with 3 kids, married, and I was like, whoa, what have I gotten into? And it was the best thing for me, the best thing for my maturation process. And thinking about it now, we had a 16-year-old kid on our team make our team 2 years ago, and I'm just trying to imagine what that experience was like for him. But I think the best thing about our program and about our team specifically is the diversity within our team, not just the variance in age, but we all come from very different backgrounds. I lost my leg to cancer. We have a a military veteran who did 2 tours in Afghanistan, guys who were born with different disabilities that I'd never heard of, and who always just wanted to play hockey but could never play in the NHL because they were limited by their disability. And so it was an interesting environment to walk into, and I was surprised to learn that there's absolutely no sympathy whatsoever. Well, there is, but guys are just there to work. Guys are there to get better. It's just a high-performance environment, and that's what I was searching for. That's what I wanted most, and that's what I was most scared to lose. And so I've been able to play on the national team now for 6 years, and I think most of what my story, and especially our journey over the last 6 years as a team, has taught me is that we've talked a lot about challenges and facing different challenges, and I think my career, my hockey career, has certainly not been a linear process, but I think the way I look at it is challenges can be stepping stones or stumbling blocks, and we've talked a lot about perspective and how you look at the challenges you're faced with, and I certainly think for me, losing my leg was this. It wasn't now that we're 8 years later, but it wasn't a career-ending injury. It was a career-starting injury, and that's sometimes difficult to see. But it is all about how you look at it. And for me, it was an opportunity to be a better student, be a better person, be a better son, brother. And so, I think in all the challenges we face, we have an opportunity to create something positive. And so, over the past 6 years, it's by far been the best experience of my life, having the opportunity to play for Team Canada year-round, travel across the country and across the world, and represent Canada, meet new people all over the place, and be surrounded by high-performance athletes who share your same dreams and ambitions. And it's an incredible environment to be a part of. And for us as a team, it hasn't always been amazing. Cassie talked about the expectation to win gold medals. We've been able to do that multiple times at World Championships over the past few years, but I've now been to 2 Paralympic Games and haven't won a gold medal. And she also talked about the pressures associated with being a hockey player playing for Team Canada. And I know, speaking from our team, we always go to the Paralympics about 2 weeks after the Olympic Games end. And so one of the best things about it, and maybe one of the most scary things about it, is that we always show up looking to cap off triple gold, because our men's and women's team always go and win gold. And that's an exciting opportunity, but it's terrifying at the same time. We have a chance to write history every time we go to the Paralympic Games, and hopefully we're someday able to do that. But I think, looking back on my experience at 2 Paralympics, we won a bronze medal game in Sochi, and I can confidently say that feels a lot better than losing a gold medal game. But specifically last season, I look back to last season, 2016, 2017, where we found a team that is very rare to find. Often in hockey you have a team full of brothers. You don't always have a team full of best friends. You're not always going to be best friends with everybody, and we were lucky to find that over the past 2 years. And we were able to win a world championship together last year in 2017, which was exciting to go into Korea as the defending world champions, as the favorites. And it's hard I haven't talked about it much, to be honest, but it's hard to describe, because we showed up to a gold medal game ready to win. I remember didn't sleep the night before. From the time we got to the rink 2 hours before the game, I was sick to my stomach. I threw up twice. Sorry. With nerves, just extremely nervous, but I loved it because I cared. And, looking around the room, everybody had that same attitude. Everyone was ready to go. And we got out to a 1-0 lead, and everything was great. And it was by far the most heartbreaking way to lose. The women were on the opposite side of it 4 years ago in Sochi, where we hit a post with 1 minute and 2 seconds left with an open net, and we could have made it 2-0. I got a puck on the half wall with 52 seconds, made a play that I would never usually make, and they came down and scored to tie it up 1-1 with 37 seconds to go. And I remember that's the other moment in my life where I've just been so broken and motionless, laying on the ice, not knowing what to do. And the hardest part about everything was that we still had a game to play. And I remember going into the room just being physically and mentally exhausted, but knowing that we could still win a gold medal. And so, unfortunately, it didn't play out that way. They scored 3 minutes into overtime, and it was the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever been a part of. Probably something that'll haunt me for a very long time. And, from there, you immediately start looking for answers. And they're somewhere out there, and you may never find them. All you can do is just move on, find a way to get better, find a way to improve. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. And I remember the bus ride back from that gold medal game was a 45-minute bus ride, felt like about 3 hours. And we get back to the village, and we're dreading going to closing ceremonies, which is crazy to think about. But we just lost a gold medal game, and the last thing we wanted to do is go sit in the rain and watch the closing ceremonies, which are amazing. But I'm sitting there with our captain, Greg Westlake, who has been a mentor of mine since I made Team Canada. And we're sitting there just postponing going downstairs to leave. We made the entire group late, but he said something that really stuck with me. And he said, because he's more than likely moving on. I'm not going to speak for him, but he said, in high-performance sport, when you're playing for Team Canada and you have one game to go win a gold medal, sports don't care about the nice guy. They don't care about the sportsman. If you want a gold medal, you just have to go take it. And especially now, as someone who plans to move forward with the sport and go to Beijing and maybe 2026, I needed to hear that because, our job now as a team is to do whatever we can to go out and win over the next 4 years, and we fully intend on doing that. So, I thank you for kind of reigniting that flame in me today and getting started on that journey. I'm very honored to be here, and thank you very much.
That was great. Thanks, Tyler. Really appreciate it. And go kick some ass, man. Make it happen. Make it happen.